You saw me undressed tonight. Now marry me, said the giant bride. He froze. Thereafter, Thomas Whitmore stood knee-deep in creek water, still holding the bucket. He'd come to fill, staring at the most magnificent woman he'd ever seen. Astrid Henriksen rose from the water like something from a Norse legend, 6 feet and 3 in of muscle and curves, her wet chemise clinging to a body built for survival, not ballrooms. She wasn't asking. Her blue eyes held the fierce certainty of someone who'd been dishonored one too many times and refused to let it happen again. In my country, a man who sees an unmarried woman's body must make her his wife. It's God's law and honor's demand. Thomas tried to find words, but his throat had gone dry. She stepped closer, water streaming from her hair, and he realized 2 things simultaneously. First, she was absolutely serious. Second, he'd been secretly hoping she'd be exactly this extraordinary since her first letter arrived 3 months ago. The problem wasn't that she was demanding marriage. The problem was that he wanted to say yes, and he had no idea if she actually wanted him or just his name to restore her dignity. The creek gurgled around his boots, indifferent to the moment that was, rewriting his entire future. Evening light turned everything gold and amber. The water, her skin, the Montana mountains rising behind his small ranch. Thomas could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears, louder than the creek, louder than the distant cattle lowing in the pasture. "Miss Henriksen," he finally managed, his voice rough. "I didn't mean I wasn't trying to, I know." She cut him off, but not unkindly. Her accent was thick, each word carefully pronounced like she was translating in her head before speaking. The stage came early. I walked from town. I was hot and dusty, and the creek looked so beautiful. I thought I was alone on your land. She wrung water from her long blonde braid, the motion revealing the strength in her arms. Thomas had never seen a woman with shoulders like that, with hands that looked capable of real work. His late wife, Catherine, had been delicate, small-boned, the kind of woman who needed help opening jar lids. Astrid was the opposite of delicate. "I should have called out," Thomas said. "Should have made noise so you'd hear me coming. This is my fault, not yours. Fault doesn't matter now." Astrid's jaw was set, determined. "What matters is what happens next. In my village in Sweden, this would bring shame on my whole family. My father would challenge you to fight or force you to wed me. Here I have no father, no family, only my word and God's law." Her voice cracked on the last words, and Thomas saw past the fierce exterior to the fear underneath. She was terrified. Terrified he'd refuse. Terrified she'd traveled 1,000 mi just to be rejected again. "How long have you been traveling?" he asked, stalling, trying to think through the chaos in his head. 16 days. "Train from New York, stage from Denver?" "Walking the last 5 miles, because the driver said your ranch was not worth the detour." She smiled bitterly. He was right to wonder. "I saw your house. It needs paint. The barn needs repair. Your fences sag. This is not the prosperous ranch your letters suggested." Thomas felt shame burn hot in his chest. "I didn't lie. I just didn't mention how bad things got after Catherine died." Catherine. Astrid's expression shifted. "Your wife 3 years ago. Fever took her in 2 days. After that, I couldn't seem to care about paint or fences or anything except making it through each day without falling apart completely." The confession hung between them. Thomas hadn't meant to say it, hadn't told anyone how hollow he'd been since Catherine's death. But something about this strange woman demanding marriage made honesty feel necessary. Astrid's fierce expression softened. "You loved her very much." "I did. I do. I don't know how to stop." "Good." Astrid waited closer until only a few feet separated them. "A man who can love that deeply is a man worth marrying. Even if he's marrying me only because honor demands it." That's not Thomas stopped, wasn't it? Wasn't he agreeing because of honor? Or was there more to it? He thought about her letters, 3 months of correspondence that had started formal and slowly became personal. She'd written about growing up in Sweden, about losing her mother young, about her father's farm and the hard winters and the way the northern lights danced green across winter skies. She'd written about coming to America with dreams of something better and finding only rejection. "Men here think I'm a freak," she'd written in one letter. "Too tall, too strong, too much. I'm good for hauling water and chopping wood, but not for courting or loving or choosing, Thomas had written back. I need someone strong. Ranch life breaks delicate things. Strong sounds perfect to me. He'd meant it then. He meant it now, standing in creek water, watching the sunset reflect in her eyes. I'll marry you, Thomas said, and watched her eyes go wide with shock. Not just because of honor, not just because you saw me looking, but because I read your letters and thought maybe someone who understood loneliness might understand me too. Astrid's breath caught. You want to marry me? I agreed to it 3 months ago when the matchmaker sent your information. I just thought we'd have more time before this. He gestured at the creek, at her wet clothes, at the impossible situation. But yes, I want to marry you, Astrid Henriksen. She didn't smile. Didn't throw herself into his arms like women did in dime novels. Instead, she studied his face like she was trying to read truth in his features. You're saying this because you feel trapped. I'm saying this because I feel hopeful for the first time in 3 years. You don't know me. Not really. Letters aren't the same as living with someone day after day. Then we'll learn together. Isn't that what marriage is? Astrid wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking younger than her 28 years. I need you to understand something, Thomas. I'm not easy to live with. I'm loud. I have opinions. I can't cook the American way, only Swedish food. I take up space. I break things because I forget my own strength. Men have called me unnatural. Men are idiots, Thomas said flatly, and was rewarded with the ghost of a smile on her lips. I snore, she continued. I have nightmares. Sometimes I wake up crying, and I don't know why. I'm damaged, Thomas, just like you. Maybe more. He set down his bucket and waited closer, stopping just short of touching her. Astrid, listen to me. I'm 38 years old. My wife died and I couldn't save her. This ranch is barely surviving. I have nightmares, too. I talk to Catherine's grave like she can hear me. I burn dinner half the time and eat cold beans the other half. I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for real. Real is messy. I know, but maybe messy is better than being alone. The words settled between them like a promise. Astrid searched his face one more time, then nodded slowly. Okay, we marry tomorrow if the pastor will agree. But Thomas, she touched his chest right over his heart, her palm warm through his shirt. I need to know something first. When you looked at me just now, rising from the creek, what did you see? He could have lied. Could have said something polite and meaningless. But her eyes demanded truth. I saw the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life, Thomas said quietly. And I was terrified. You'd take one look at my failing ranch and my grieving heart and get back on that stage to somewhere better. Astrid's eyes filled with tears. You think I'm beautiful? Yes. You're magnificent, she laughed, sudden and bright, and the sound chased away 3 years of silence from his creek. Men have called me many things. Magnificent was never one of them, and they were blind fools. Maybe we're both fools, getting married because of an accident. Or maybe we're both lucky. Thomas finally let himself smile. Either way, we'll find out together. Astrid held out her hand, not for him to kiss like a gentleman, but for a firm handshake like equals. Thomas took it, feeling calluses that matched his own, feeling strength that didn't threaten him, but completed him somehow. Tomorrow then, Astrid said, we become husband and wife tomorrow, Thomas agreed, and knew that everything had just changed forever. The walk back to the ranch house felt longer than it should have. Thomas carried his bucket, now forgotten and empty. Astrid walked beside him, her dress leaving wet footprints in the dust, her braid dripping water down her back. Neither spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable exactly, but it was heavy with everything unspoken. The sun was setting properly now, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange that Catherine used to say looked like God was showing off. Thomas pushed the thought away. He couldn't compare them. Wouldn't be fair to either woman. Your ranch is smaller than I imagined, Astrid said finally, her voice neutral. Thomas looked at his property through her eyes and felt shame curl in his stomach. The house needed more than paint. It needed new boards on the porch, new shingles on the roof, windows that closed properly. The barn leaned slightly to the left, fences sagged between posts. Weeds grew tall around the well. It was beautiful once, he said quietly. Catherine kept flowers in boxes under every window. She sewed curtains. She made it feel like a home instead of just a building. And after she died, you let it fall apart. It wasn't a question. Thomas nodded anyway. I kept the animals alive, kept myself alive. That was about all I could manage. Astrid stopped walking and turned to face him. In the fading light, her wet hair looked like spun gold. I'm not her, Thomas. I can't make this place what she made it. I'm not asking. You too, but you'll compare. You won't mean to, but you will. Every meal that's not quite right. Every corner that's not quite clean. Every moment when I'm not quite her. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were bright with unshed tears. I've spent my whole life being not quite what people wanted. I won't do it again, not even for a husband. Thomas set down his bucket and faced her fully. You're right. I will compare, because that's what humans do when they've lost something precious. But Astrid, he stepped closer, close enough to see the freckles across her nose. I won't be wishing you were her. I'll be grateful you're you. You don't know that yet. No, but I'm willing to find out. Are you? She studied him for a long moment. Then she reached out and touched his face, her palm rough with calluses, her touch gentle despite her size. You have kind eyes. I noticed that in the photograph you sent. I thought maybe a man with kind eyes wouldn't flinch when he saw how big I am. I didn't flinch. No, you stared, but not with disgust. She paused, searching for the word with wonder, like I was something unexpected but not unwanted. That's exactly what you are. Astrid's smile was sad. We'll see tomorrow when we speak vows. Then the day after, when the wonder wears off and reality sets in. Then the week after, when you realize what it means to be married to a woman who doesn't fit in chairs properly and breaks dishes because her hands are too strong. Then I'll build stronger chairs and buy cheaper dishes. She laughed despite herself, the sound surprising them both. You're very determined to make this sound simple. It is simple. You need a home. I need a partner. We're both lonely and tired of being alone. That's enough to start with, is it? Astrid's hand dropped from his face. What happens when starting isn't enough? When you want more than partnership, when you need... She trailed off, but Thomas understood what she wasn't saying. When I need a real wife, not just a housekeeper with a marriage certificate. She nodded, looking away. Thomas took a breath, choosing his words carefully. Astrid, I'm not going to lie and say I know what I'll feel in a month or a year. I loved Catherine deeply. Losing her nearly destroyed me. Part of me is still grieving, will probably always be grieving. But another part of me read your letters and felt something I thought was dead. Hope, interest, curiosity about who you are and what your laugh sounds like and whether you take your coffee black or with cream black, she said softly. Very strong Swedish style. See, I didn't know that. There's 1,000 things I don't know about you. And yes, that's terrifying. But it's also exciting in a way I haven't felt in 3 years. He moved closer still. I won't rush you. Won't demand things you're not ready to give. We'll take this as slow as you need, but I need you to believe that I'm not settling. I'm choosing. Astrid's eyes searched his face. What if I can't give you children? What if I'm barren? I'm 28 and never been married. Maybe there's a reason. Then we'll have a quiet house and more time for each other. What if I'm terrible at being a wife? Then we'll figure it out together. What if her voice broke? What if you wake up one day and wish you'd said no? Thomas reached for her hand, the one that had shaken his so firmly by the creek, and held it gently. What if I wake up one day and thank God I said yes? A tear slipped down Astrid's cheek. She didn't wipe it away. In Sweden, we have a saying, hopist. Hope is the last thing to abandon a person. I had almost no hope left when I answered your advertisement. If this doesn't work, it will work. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not easily, but it will work because we'll both be trying. She squeezed his hand, her strength evident but controlled. Tomorrow then the pastor's house is in town. 3 me, we can take the wagon at first light. What should I wear? I have 2 dresses. One is wet, the other is plain brown. Wear whatever makes you comfortable. You'll be beautiful regardless. Astrid made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. You keep saying that beautiful. Don't you see what's wrong with me? Wrong with you? Thomas frowned. What's wrong is that someone convinced you that being strong and tall and capable is something to apologize for. What's wrong is that I lived 38 years without knowing women like you existed. What's wrong is that we're standing in a dusty yard instead of inside where I can offer you proper hospitality. He tugged her hand gently toward the house. Come on, you must be exhausted, hungry. I'll make coffee, show you where you'll sleep tonight. Tomorrow we'll be married, but tonight you're still my guest and I'm a terrible host, leaving you standing outside. Astrid followed, her wet dress swishing around her legs. At the porch step she paused. Which room was hers? Catherine's. The question hit him like a fist to the chest. The bedroom on the east side, morning light through the window. She loved waking up with the sun. I'll take a different room. Astrid, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Her voice was firm. I won't sleep in her bed, wear her clothes, or try to fill her space. I'll make my own space. Understood? Thomas nodded, throat tight with emotion he couldn't name. Gratitude, maybe, or relief that she understood without him having to explain. Inside, the house smelled like dust and loneliness. Thomas lit lamps, revealing the mess he'd stopped noticing. Dishes in the basin, newspapers on the table, boots by the door, a general air of neglect that made him whiz. I'll clean, he said quickly. Tomorrow after the wedding we'll clean together. Astrid moved through the space, touching things gently. The back of a chair, the edge of the table, the cold stove. This was a happy home once. I can feel it. How little things. The way she hung her dish towels. See, the hook is at exactly the right height for someone small. The shelf with the good plates displayed, not hidden. The window over the sink positioned so she could watch the sunset while washing dishes. Astrid turned to face him. She'd made a life here. Loved it here. I can see it in every detail. Thomas had to look away, overwhelmed. I couldn't change anything after she died. Couldn't pack her things away or move furniture or even take down her curtains. It felt like erasing her. I won't erase her. Astrid crossed to where he stood and waited until he met her eyes. But I will add to what she built. My own touches, my own life. Is that acceptable? More than acceptable, it's what needs to happen. I just couldn't do it alone. You're not alone anymore. The words settled over him like a blanket. Not alone anymore. When was the last time that had been true? Coffee? He said, needing to move to do something with his hands. Let me make coffee. And there's bread, probably stale but edible. Cheese from town. Some apples. I'll help. No, you're soaking wet and exhausted. Sit, please. Let me take care of you. Astrid looked like she might argue, then sank into a chair by the table. The chair creaked alarmingly under her weight, and she stood up immediately. I'm too heavy. I'll break your furniture. The chair is old. The wood is weak. You're fine. I'm not fine. I'm 63 in and weigh more than most men. I break things, Thomas, all the time. It's why I prefer to stand. Thomas looked at this magnificent woman trying to make herself smaller and felt something fierce rise in his chest. He crossed to her and took both her hands. Tomorrow, first thing after we're married, I'm building you a proper chair strong enough to hold you comfortably with a cushion. And I'm building a bed frame that won't creak. And I'm raising the countertop 6 in so you don't have to bend over. This is your home now, Astrid. It should fit you, not the other way around. Her eyes went wide. You do that. I do anything to make you comfortable here, but the cost worth it. You're worth it. Astrid looked at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. Maybe he had. Maybe no one had ever told her she was worth the effort. Sit, he said gently. Risk the chair. If it breaks, we'll know what to fix first. She sat slowly, carefully. The chair held. Thomas turned to the stove and started building a fire, hands busy, mind racing. Tomorrow he'd marry a stranger. Tomorrow his life would change completely. Tomorrow he'd stand in front of God and community and promise forever to a woman he'd met an hour ago. And somehow, instead of terrified, he felt alive. The coffee was terrible. Thomas knew it even as he poured it into 2 mismatched cups. The liquid dark and bitter from sitting too long on the heat. But Astrid took her cup with both hands, inhaling the steam like it was the finest thing she'd ever been offered. Strong, she said approvingly, like home. They sat across from each other at the small kitchen table, the lamp between them casting shadows that made the moment feel both intimate and strange. Thomas cut thick slices of bread, added cheese, pushed the plate toward her. She ate like someone who'd learned not to waste food, efficient and grateful. Tell me about your ranch. Astrid said between bites. The letters said cattle, but I see mostly land and very few animals. Thomas winced. I had 40 head 3 years ago. Now I'm down to 15. Had to sell them off to pay debts after Catherine died. Dr. Bill's funeral costs. Then a bad winter, where I lost 5 to cold because I didn't have the strength to bring them all into shelter. 15 is enough to rebuild from if I can keep them alive through another winter. If the bank doesn't foreclose, if a dozen other things don't go wrong. He rubbed his face, suddenly exhausted. I'm being honest with you, Astrid. This ranch is barely surviving. I barely am. If you're expecting prosperity, I'm expecting work. She set down her coffee cup with a decisive thunk. Hard work, Dawn.